Now it's time for today's perspective. And my guest on the programme today is a woman who is a chef turned cookbook writer who's also become something of an activist as well. That's because Olia Hercules is Ukrainian, born there in 1984, though she first moved to Cyprus, to Italy and now to London. She worked in journalism, then as a chef, combined the two to write about cooking, several cookbooks to her name. Her latest book, though, something of a departure for her, Strong Roots, a memoir of food, family and Ukraine, tells more the story of her family, and she joins us now on the programme. Thanks very much for being with us on the programme today. I mean, it's a bit of a different challenge for you here, really, isn't it? I mean, why did you decide not to do just another cookbook, but to talk more about your family?
Thank you so much for having me today. I come from the south of Ukraine, which is just 70 kilometers away from Crimea, if you can imagine how dangerous it was in 2014 when the war actually started in Ukraine. We thought that Russia would go further and would take over. They didn't back then, but obviously they did in 2022. My hometown, Kakhovka, is still occupied by the Russians, and my family, my parents, my extended family, they have all lost homes. They've lost their businesses. They're all either internally displaced or some of them are in Europe, like my mom is in Berlin. And in 2022, I thought that it would be very useful and important actually to write down a history of a Ukrainian family to explain why it's happening now, why this war is happening, because it didn't start in 2022, it didn't start in 2014. Ukraine has been essentially a Russian colony for hundreds of years. So it was really important for me to explain it all from a personal perspective, because people look at headlines in newspapers, on TV, and all they see are very generic headlines. They don't explain anything. They don't explain anything about the people. They don't explain anything about what others call occupied territories or territories to be conceded. To us, they're not territories to be conceded. They're our homes full of memories and full of history.
And full of memories and full of history for a long time. I mean, looking at some of these images here, I mean, it's not just a story about recent history, is it? It's told through 4 generations, starting right back with your grandparents. Tell us about the earlier part of it.
Yeah, sure. So the story begins just before 1921. This is in the pictures you see on the left, my grandmother Lucia. It starts with her birth. She was born in the south of Ukraine as well, just in a slightly different region, in a region of Bessarabia at the time, Mykolaiv region. She was born into the first Holodomor, into the first famine that was orchestrated by the Soviet authorities in the early 20s. And she lives through it all. She lives through a deportation at the age of 11. For example, her father, my great-grandfather Moisey, was a farmer. So during the Stalin repressions, they've been dispossessed. My great-grandfather was put into prison. My grandmother Lucia, with her 5 siblings and her mom, were put into a cattle train and sent into northern Russia and just thrown out in the middle of the winter in the forest to die. But they survived. They came back. Then she survived Nazi occupation, then 70 years of Soviet occupation. And you know what? At the end of her life, she still remained a compassionate, kind, very strong woman. So it's,
I mean,
a huge inspiration to me.
It does sum it up, doesn't it? Because it going right back to that and what has happened over the Ukrainian people. I mean, later on in the book, it talks about your parents' own flight from Ukraine just a few years ago, back in 2022.
Exactly. I say that not one generation of my family has escaped dispossession, deportation, and war. Not one generation of my family. But despite all that, we don't keep silent, and we don't keep inactive. We're doing stuff in whatever way we can. I've been in the UK for the past, 23 years almost. And as soon as this invasion began, the only thing that I could do was try to help somehow, so my weapon is my pen. So that's why I wrote this book.
And how difficult was it swapping from cookbooks to this? I mean, I know I said earlier you've been a journalist as well, so presumably the two skills kind of interlinked fairly easily for you?
Not really. I mean, writing an 80,000 word book, it
It's
reads
a bit
like a
different to
novel. It's
recipes.
very It's very different to recipes. It took a while. I mean, I wrote 140,000 words in about 6 months, just completely kind of, I don't know, it was just coming out of me. And then it took 2 years to edit it into something that you see in front of you now. So it was really difficult, to be honest with you. I can't wait to write another cookbook. It will be, very easy after this.
We spend a lot of time here on France 24 talking about the latest that politicians are doing, what's going on, technically behind the scenes to try and find some kind of solution to the crisis. As you said, for you, it's been about ordinary Ukrainians being able to stand up and do something on their own. I mean, presumably every single Ukrainian is doing that in their own way, doing something they can to try and help the cause.
Of course, as you know, right now, Kiev is frozen. There are so many of my friends and family who are living in Kiev, and their radiators are cracking. I can't even imagine what it's like. I have two children of my own. I can't imagine what it's like to have small children where you can't bathe them. You have to keep them alive and warm in these extreme circumstances. But Ukrainian people are still organizing together. They're holding each other. They're helping each other. This is exactly what Putin is hoping, that it will just break us apart. But he can't. It can't. This war cannot do this. And everybody is doing something. You're right. Like my brother, for example, he's never even held a weapon in his entire life. He was developing an eco bike delivery business the day before the invasion, and on the second day of the invasion, he joined the territorial army, where he's on the Russian border now, in the armed forces of Ukraine. And my father is back in Ukraine. He couldn't stay in Berlin. He said that there's nothing for him there. He needs to do something. So he's building a minesweeper out of a tractor. This is quite kind of an extreme case, but everybody is doing something. We're
And
very strong and very united.
and how difficult is it, not being in Ukraine, watching events from elsewhere?
It's incredibly difficult, actually. I even feel sometimes that because my brother and my dad are in Ukraine, being there kind of makes them feel maybe a little bit more in control in a weird way, even though they're there in the epicenter of the action. Being far away is really painful because, every morning I wake up and immediately I just check the news. I do the doom scrolling and you see explosion there and you just think, oh my God, is everyone alive? And then you start messaging everyone. It's difficult. However, I have been to Ukraine since the war began. I've just been for a week in October, and it was a difficult trip. I won't over romanticize it.
I can only imagine. Olia Hercules, great to have you with us on the programme today. Thank you very much for talking to us. I can say that book has been described, your book has been described from the cooking world. Nigella Lawson calling it an instant classic. So there you go. You can't have a better recommendation than that, can you? Strong Roots, a memoir of food, family and Ukraine, the book. Thanks very much.